The winner of this challenge is this illustration. I believe they are the ones who applied a lot into their illustration. They went for a background, they went for color, they went for a gesture that has a lot of movement in it, a foreground and a background. The foreground and the background are just really, really dynamic, and then they went for an even further background. And then there's just the expression that they went through. There was really no rock left unturned with this illustration. They really gave it their all, and I'm really happy to see that. The perspectives on the horses, so you can see how the reason they won is because they tried a lot. They tried a lot of different things. The perspective on the horse alone. How many days did you spend on every individual horse, or how many hours? And the fact that you kind of carried the story, made something out of it, kind of made it your own. You made the evil villain of the story, which is the evil corrupted king. You kind of made that your own as well. And I like how you color coded. You used those kind of duller lights for the foreground and the magical cool light in the far corner. You also tried to use a high angle perspective. So you really tried it all, which I'm really, really happy to see, because you really gave it your all. You tried something different. So I'm very, very happy with that. So I'd like to see how much further I can push you. So you have a portfolio review or two with me, and you have Portrait Studio, yours if you'd like it, and my masterclass and my brush sets and everything you might need to just mimic what I do in classes. Thank you so much for participating. Your work is amazing. You put in so much effort into this, and I'm just amazed by the fabric, the way you managed to make the fabric look iridescent and light and angelic. The expression, the effort you put into the hair, the detail along the horses, or unicorns, no, horses. And just everything you did is so well done. Congratulations, and thank you for putting so much effort into the challenge.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was so surprised to win, so thank you.
You shouldn't be surprised. You put so much effort into it. We've got a background, like I said earlier, you have the background, you've got so much movement. So let's talk about the things that feel just a little bit off. So just right off the bat, I'm not going to get into big paint overs today, but what I will do is just kind of point out some of the major issues, whatever they may be, and then ask you your opinion. And so for yours,
Okay.
what I'm seeing is just like a big empty spot right there. And most of the detail is weighing on the lower half of the canvas. Like, we can literally draw a box around this empty spot. And for something so glorious and so, just so much is going on, it feels like you're showing just a little bit too much of negative space at the top half of the canvas, which also feels like that's where this character is looking. You see how the head is not quite tilted down as it should be, looking down at this oncoming charge. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be as easy a fix as just grabbing this whole thing and pushing everything forward and up a little bit. It kind of fills in this half of the canvas nicely, while this half of the canvas is also feeling filled in as well. Nothing feels like we have just this big empty splotch in the back that doesn't have any kind of detail. And we still get to have the background this way. The background is still there. It's just proportionate. They shouldn't have such a giant piece for something so empty. So how would you go about fixing this? What is your opinion? What do you think you're going to do to fix that little bit of emptiness there in the illustration?
I could add more of the city in the background, maybe just some more visual interest, but I didn't want to overcrowd it, so I'm not sure.
Why are you why do you want to keep her on the lower half? The warrior.
Um, I wanted her to be coming up from below, almost defiant to the tyrant.
But we are looking at things from top down, right? So we wouldn't even be seeing much of the background. We're looking down, so our line of sight, the camera is pointed down from the top of the castle down to the warrior. So at the end of the day, even the cameraman would not have seen more of the background. So I think that fix,
True.
raising the
Yeah.
character up, the camera is just looking at the ground. If it's looking at the ground by default, we're not going to see most of the sky, but we still want to see the ruins. We still want to see the general unrest in the background, which I think you did so beautifully, especially with the colors. So I think raising that up fixes everything with very, very minimal effort. You don't have to bring in extra detail in the background, because that's a bad reaction to a very small problem. That's a big reaction to a small problem. It's just a slight shift in composition, where if you were to add more detail in the background, you might be disrupting the detail balance. You know, things that are supposed to be detailed are in the focal point, not somewhere in the background. So adding more buildings, I don't think it's worth it to risk that disruption of the focal point. So there's that. And then there's the character here, which feels just a little bit lost. So you could have added a bit more, just added a bit more of that burning background behind this, behind the tyrant a little bit more, just so we can break off that shadow in the foreground, or behind the character, sorry. And I think that would have gone a long way, just so that we can see the silhouette of the tyrant a little bit more clearly. So just to show that this whole place is surrounded by death and destruction. It's not strictly one section in the background, that there's kind of corruption everywhere, and that the war has reached right to the footsteps of the castle. So I'm just trying to retrieve the focal, what do you call it? The silhouette. And then you can add whatever you'd like for extra negative space details. So just more of these changes in altitude and elevation, stuff like that. And then more of those building like, wrong brush, more of those like building like silhouettes in the background, and everything's kind of demolished. So that kind of wakes up the silhouette directly behind her, and we get to not, lose this character silhouette in some random shadow in the top corner that feels a lot like the character's hidden. Do you see that? Before, after, before, after. And then I'm just going to clean that up. But that's it, really. In our sessions together, we're going to talk about what to do if you want to make more illustrations. I'll probably assign an illustration assignment for you, and you can do another one. You'll do a whole set of thumbnails. You'll have a narrative, all of that. That's the stuff I usually do for students who are ready for illustrations. And I'll probably also assign a lot of studies that I feel like will really amplify your skill, just kind of help you fill in the gaps of where it might be missing. Some anatomy studies, texture studies, but I really think you've got your foot in the door with illustration. You're really doing so well, and you've pushed so far, and you even attempted translucency in the ribbon. You managed to balance your colors. You curated little neighborhoods. The detail on the cobblestone and the brick, I think you did so well. Thank you again so much for participating. I love seeing this kind of participation. I'm just gonna clean that up. Okay, so I'm done gushing all over this painting. Let's talk about this one here. So what do you think are the issues with it? And what do you like about it?
I guess I can't see a spear. Well, it's not as noticeable. I didn't realize it was on her back just until I saw it now.
Yeah.
And then I can't. Maybe her silhouette could be stronger.
Okay. So like maybe using the spear somewhere here, and maybe kind of holding the spear like that, instead of back here somewhere. And then the stronger silhouette, I think it goes without saying, there's a lot of missing contrast in the scene, maybe because it's a early in the process, it's not finished. Again, I never really know if they're finished or if they're just handed in like that, and they're just kind of not done, and they just wanted to see if, so it's like not my place to tell, but sometimes they do look very, very unfinished. And I just can't stress enough to kind of manage your deadlines. If you guys, this is what these challenges are about, just learning how to deal with deadlines, learning how to plan your time. It's a very big deal in the professional world, so you guys have to get used to that as just a general rule. But this here, and of course there's all kinds of circumstances that make someone miss a deadline. But I'm just raising the contrast a little bit on this character to kind of create that glow. What other things did you notice, Harrison?
I'm not sure what that thing on her head is. It's a bit of a tangent.
Oh, this. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we can get rid of that. So very small changes result in really, really big results. Not my most eloquent moment, but they just like show up really, really quickly. For textures, I feel like they could really benefit from a kind of metallic armor of some kind here, just creating that banding. And there's also just the general glow. So this is like small changes that can help this as it is, but I think there's a lot that is requires that you kind of go back to the drawing board. It kind of looks like a guard standing and kind of waiting for orders. So when we add these extra glowing elements, it'll look more like an angelic kind of being from above, maybe adding a bit of a gesture so it's not so symmetrical to the legs, just adding a bit of a gesture there, one leg in front of the other, like they're walking forward, and they're about to kind of, this just is the moment of descent when they finally reveal themselves to the army. Then there's maybe just playing around with some kind of translucency here. Do you have any other suggestions for things for me to add or change?
Yeah, I was going to say translucency just because it's a bit strong. I don't know really. I like the eyes. I feel like that's a technique that you've taught them.
Yeah, they definitely look very I love the expression. It's like it's not quite a neutral expression. There's like power there. There's some kind of strength to this expression. It's like expressionless, but very, very powerful. I think they definitely got that perfectly. And they tried a low angle shot, which is really, really cool. They actually knew what to do here. If you want the low angle shot to still feel very strong, you have to try to get rid of the edge of the chin. That only happens when we have a head-on kind of perspective. So just really quickly, if you want the head to feel even more pointed upward, you kind of have to make sure more of the eyes are hanging out above the ear line and the ears are still beneath the head a little bit. So it's a small change, but it adds less of that guard look and more of that kind of above us look. But then again, you know, I could also argue that making the head point down a little bit more also adds a little bit of that regal kind of character, like a god looking down upon the earth, like those big colossal paintings you see of those kind of like celestial beings in the sky in the clouds
Oh
looking
yeah.
down, kind of like a Simba's dad moment. There's also that. So you have different options, but just because of where you had it before, I'm just pushing it up just to imitate what you did with the nose, just so it doesn't feel like a crushed head or a head that's too small for the body, because it felt like that a little bit. But don't be shy. If the character needs a white background, if there's glowing, then add the white background. Don't be too shy of that. So small changes, but it made the white background also made your positive space look more complete. And that gray background wasn't going to go anywhere. It wasn't going to do anything. It wasn't going to add anything extra. If it's a warrior of light, it makes all the sense that the background is completely white. Okay, moving forward. Let us take a look at this one. All right, so let's go. What do you think about this one, Harrison? And by the way, can I call you Harrison?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my
Okay.
name.
Okay, go on.
I like the spear and the sun in the background. I feel like it's really painterly
Mm-hmm.
and pretty.
Mm-hmm. I think there were two
And the rim light as
submissions.
well.
The rim light.
Ah,
Yeah, there were two of these. Oops, I lost where I was. Okay, so there's this one and this one. And I honestly forget which one was posted. I think this was a working piece and this was a final. So what would you change about this?
just some anatomy things and maybe the horizon could.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a bit too strong, but the mountain doesn't feel. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. What would you do?
I would lighten the mountain.
You would
Oh, I
lighten
don't know.
you so you would lighten the mountain. The horizon feels a little bit like you think the horizon feels too simplified, or by too high you mean that it's
I think there's no difference between the top of the mountain and where he's standing in value. It's almost like he's on
Hmm.
a little hill, not a mountain.
Okay. So you're kind of trying to just show the altitude. All right. So just like general perspective, atmospheric perspective at the top.
Yeah. Maybe you could do a similar thing with the last one. You just have a lighter background. I don't know.
Yeah. And then how about what's your opinion on the texture and the painting style, the brushstrokes?
I like the brushstrokes. I always overblend, so I think they've got nice brushstrokes. I think
Mm-hmm, I
he
agree.
could push highlights maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. And I wouldn't change the painting style. What I would do is look up I feel like this is like the very first sketch they did and they just stuck with it. There's so many other gestures you could pick that look a lot less, they look a lot more godlike, a lot more Super Saiyan. Do you know what I'm saying? Than just whatever's happening here. I feel like you're trying to do perspective with a small leg. This leg is significantly smaller in size and scale than this one. So I feel like they're trying to make it look like they're walking forward, but they're not really grasping their perspective enough. So for something like this, if I were to like just diagnose what they should study gestures and just gestures related to trope. So if it's like a godlike Super Saiyan descended from the heavens with a spear, you're gonna think of very like not exactly symmetrical but very confident pose. These legs are bent and they're not exactly symmetrical, and it doesn't feel like a confident character. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a character that's sneaking and kind of trying not to make noise while they're taking steps. And he's kind of looking in that direction, and that's fine. But where you place them, again, it just what are they interacting with? What are they walking towards? I think looking at gestures and studying gestures would be really, really good for this artist. And then studying other painters, doing master studies. How are other painters filling up their paintings with stuff? They're going to need more stuff. It's a lot of empty space here. And like you could have added like another little mountain. You could have added several. You could have added a mountain that's less of a simple shape of a mountain and more kind of like jagged. Using references goes a very, very long way into making things look less simplified. Then there's the gesture, which could have been a bit more graceful. If you've ever seen the grace of like kung fu stances for those who use the spear, very kind of like poised. You can tell it's a battle pose. It's a fighting pose, but not exactly out of balance. It feels very balanced. This character feels very out of balance. Things that I love that you did are the colors. I think the colors are just phenomenal. What you did here with the sky, like your eye for color is crazy, dude. And then you used some kind of like iridescent blue here. And I just love it. I would not change the colors even a little bit. I would just change the gesture. I would add more stuff in the background of some kind, maybe a hill that he landed on so that everybody could see him, because he's kind of like the deliverer. He's going to change everything for the better for everyone. And so he came into this battle that was going to, basically everyone is going to die if it wasn't for him. So he saved an entire population from dying, all those people who were fighting back against a very terrible tyrant. So there's like this moment where the character is just visible to everyone in the battle. And so just a simple hill and your character here, some basic mountain silhouettes, this exact color combination, this exact texture style, but with a new composition. So if you were my student, I would assign you gesture studies, master studies, and composition studies. And that plus all your colors, this composition plus all your colors and texture, I think would just be an amazing jaw-dropping piece. It really would be amazing. So any last thoughts, Harrison, before we move on?
No, I think you summed up really well, and I just think zooming out, it looks really beautiful, and I think that's its strong suit, is definitely the colors.
Yeah, the
And I agree. I
colors.
think maybe having him on a little hill, maybe
Yeah.
stepping up onto a rock or something, he would look like he's overcoming.
Yeah, and don't overrate the size of the character in the painting. If you want to make a character look amazing, sometimes all you have to do is shrink them into like the smallest little piece, because it induces scale, the feeling like this, whoa, the things got really epic really quick. Because as soon as you start shrinking the sizes of characters, it increases the size of the environment. And if that character is on a hill in that environment, and you've got all these, really, really beautiful scenic mountains in the background, and the characters floating above the ground, and their spears floating beside them, it's like, who is this character? What is going on? This is all so epic and amazing. And that was the point of the story. And that's why Harrison is the winner, because he managed to capture that epicness to that story, which it's a very epic, almost like fantastical legend story. It's kind of like what people tell each other around the fireplace than something that actually happened. You want to capture some of that epicness, and nothing says epicness like scale. So I think your character is just too big in the canvas. I get that. I get why some beginners believe that the bigger the character in the canvas, the better my painting. Not always, especially if it's a balance between environment and character. This is the alternate version, the alternative. What do you have? I think they still have these amazing colors here and textures. Like, their eye for color and texture is just so consistently good. What do you think, Harrison, of this version?
Yeah, I agree. With just brush strokes, you can tell that there's like fire and shrapnel, and
Yeah.
his beard is glowing, and there's reflections on his suit of armor. Yeah, I
Yes.
think it's really
I
great.
agree. Yeah, the reflections on the armor as well. I didn't notice that. Yeah, this artist would really benefit from the things I listed earlier. So that's something to work on, for a New Year's resolution or something like that. Just more composition studies, more master studies, specifically master composition studies, and more gesture studies. I think that, combined with your amazing eye for color and your eye for texture, your work is going to just do this huge jump in skill. Okay, let's talk about this one. This one's really interesting. I believe this is the one that was updated. Do you have any thoughts on it, Harrison? Go ahead.
They're very cool. It's kind of like a Nike commercial
Mm-hmm.
in a good way.
Yeah.
And I like the fire effect on the metal as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I really do as well. It's so well done. For pieces like this, it's gonna be so hard for me to make this change. I have no idea how I'm gonna do it. Um, you have to ask yourself, yeah, okay, the gray background is great fundamentally speaking if you're studying fundamentals, but once you move into the world of world building, literally, you don't need that kind of color, that kind of gray in the background anymore. And so what I'm trying to do is find a shade first that suits, and then on that shade I'm going to add a color that might help us pull this character out. So there's like a lot of blue and a lot of gold in certain areas. There's that tan color. So I'm just gonna mess around with different colors and see what happens to try to make this feel a little bit more, that color's horrible, make this feel just a little bit more interesting to look at. So one of these cool tones, maybe the blue. Actually, that's really bringing out the gold in the helmet, and then just reducing that opacity. Also, like, the character is so small in the canvas. I know you're trying to show everything, but the character feels very, very small in the canvas. So that's a kind of a problem. We want to crop where we can. In a character design splash, it's not so, they're not so picky about concept related to the canvas. It's really not that big a deal. So just darkening the background, oopsie, darkening the background, and let me make that a solid layer. And changing the color will kind of fill that atmosphere a little bit more instead of that simple gray background. It feels good with the gray background because you matched all your values to it. And there's that glow. So what I'm going to do is try to get your glow back. You have layer access, obviously, so you'll be able to do this. But just trying to get that glow back that you had, which we'll lose if we don't. Yeah, I can't do it any other way. I'll have to do it this way. And I don't want to lose it because it'll just complete the feeling that there's fire here and flame. And that is why we need a darker background, because it wakes up all of that flame. And not just that, it could be the whole character's silhouette. And you get most of that gray back, not as a gray, but as a value and volume change. And I think that's what was missing in this piece, is that things weren't dark enough. And in the story, the time of day was kind of a very dark, gloomy day in the narrative. And I'm just trying to get some of that back. And then on a new layer, I am just going to see if I can, okay, see if I can make the glow golden. I don't know how I'm going to pull this off. Maybe with soft light. I think that works very, very nicely. And I'm just going to try it. It's really bringing out all of the glowing fire-related elements in this character. And then just as a whole, I'm going to place some of that white over the character as well. And I'm overdoing it quite a bit, but I'll bring it down once again. And one really cool thing is that this is starting to look kind of like a comet, which is really, really cool, because a comet has light compression and material compression where it's moving, but like all this dispersion at the tail. So that might be something for you to look into, because it makes it feel like this spear is moving forward. It's ready to be lunged. It's kind of almost has that pattern and distortion effect after having been thrown. So before, it's nice to have a gray neutral background, but for glowing elements, it feels like we were really missing something. And this is like with the glowing elements and the dark background, and this is the full dark background. Let me mess around with color one more time. You know, any of these colors work fine. It's really up to you. This one is nice because it's kind of matching that sandy tone that you had as well. So with the glows, and then our eyes are kind of doing the thing where we're seeing the negative of the glowing. When we do the before and afters, you kind of have to blink to see the thing. Let me try one more color change. I'm always partial to blue. I think that green also looks really cool. What color would you pick if this was your painting, Harrison?
I always go for a gradient, just because.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. It's part of staging, I guess.
Okay, and the gradient would be dark at the top or light at the top?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd have to try it.
So let me see what I can do. Oh, that is pretty cool. Let's see. I hate the banding that Photoshop does, but it is what it is. Maybe a shadow at the top and the bottom, and kind of like a neutral tone running down the middle. I think that really completes it very, very nicely. Good idea. And then There's also, one more time, again, the scale, the character is pretty small. So in splashes like this, what you want to do is hand in 2 different versions to your portfolio. Not a splash, but like, you know what it is one with just the character zoomed in and their weapon beside them. And then another, the 2 characters combined like this. So this, because it's so simple and simplified, it's amazing for concept art because it's just so simple. The more simple the concept art, the better. But obviously you have to hand in variations so we can actually get a deeper look into the character's design. But I love everything you did here. I love how the hair is just cloud. I love that. It's such a nice change of texture. I think if you had hair strands, it really would not look good. Something about the hair being just made of cloud really completes that godlike feeling to the character. And I'm just going to flatten. Any last thoughts, Harrison?
No, I agree with you. I think the hair might be fire. I can't tell, but
Is it? Oh.
I don't know. Or maybe not. I don't know. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. Either way, whatever it is, it looks just so nice. It's nice negative space where there's no detail. And I don't want it changed at all. I think it's perfect. And I like, yeah, I agree with you, the Nike commercial. It feels like it's so cool how they managed to make it look like sneakers, but not really sneakers. And the whole outfit looks like leggings, but not really. I love the armor, how it's otherworldly and almost alien-like. Really, really cool, unique design. Okay, next up would be Tushar's. What do you think of this one? Go ahead.
I like the angle that we're seeing them from, and the spear design is really well done as well. And they spent obviously a lot of time on the outfit, which is nice.
Yeah. What do you think of the colors?
And I think the colors. I like the color combination, the yellow and the purple, and I also like the environment kind of blending in with that.
You were gonna ask something? Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, is that matching the brief? Was it a kind of overcast day as well?
Oh, yeah. So that's exactly what I was trying to do right now, is try to capture the background. Because, I wouldn't, you know me, I'm Istebrak. I love dark backgrounds. And if I'm going to assign a character that's glowing, I'm going to expect a darker background. So it's really the best way to showcase the glow, the fact that it's a warrior of light. How do you show off a candle? What time of day or what kind of setting is the best setting to take a picture of a candle in a dark room? So this character is like a candle in metaphorical terms and in just literally, just as they're described. So that's why I would want to at least show that there's not, if you're going to show the light, it can be that ray of light that I describe in the narrative. But apart from that, I think there's just too much light. It's really taking away from the bolts. It's taking away from it's just everything. So I'm just trying to see if I can show that to you really quickly. If you have to, you can always show a little bit of light along the horizon line. Even at night, there's always just a little bit of glow from like towns or cities, or the people burning on fire, the whole world burning up in this final battle, this apocalyptic moment. So, there's all these reasons for having a little bit of light along the horizon line if you feel like you don't want to have a complete blackout. But I think this is all way too neutral in the background, and it doesn't really help the scene. So I want to just try to mess around with that overcast look, which comes from darker grays and kind of cooler clouds. And all that light that we see on her, so this again is just an example, could just be that ray of light kind of moving in halfway, just like that, and creating that bit of breaking in the clouds. And then again, all that fire and carnage along the backdrop can just be the light coming up from the ground behind them. Really, really small changes, but they're so effective. So like before, after, and I think that does a lot. And then of course it gives us some shadow so that the spear of light can actually be made of light and show off its light. and moving down into, I think that's too much, moving down into the electric kind of pattern that you have here, that lightning. Just a small little change. As for the purple, I talked about this in our other class. You have to decide the time of day, which is your light environment. And then from there, it tells you what colors can and can't exist. And I think this purple is just a little bit too vibrant. It can be vibrant right here. See this little patch where we have a lot of purple? That's fine. There's light feeding that. There's juice feeding that. But back here, there's not enough. There's nothing feeding it other than the gold of the sphere, which you can use on the actual cape. Light is matter. It's literally matter. It can land on things and give its color to things. I don't know if that's scientifically accurate, but in the world of art, just consider it paint. It's actual paint. You grab the paint and you share it. Light loves to share. So you just literally grab this exact color right here and you put it on. You don't go and try to mix a color after the fact with the purple and try to mix it in there. That's what you would do if it had been traditional art, but you have access to layers and you can just brush on an actual transparent brush stroke that'll open up this entire space here in the cape and kind of change that color from being so simplified, so basic and purple, to something a little bit more intricate. And I'm adding a bit more of that light. So because we darken the scene, we have to darken the character. Unless you feel like the character should be made of light or have more of that glow. So like there's the soft light, and I'm just adding like a glow to the character. And it's canceling a lot of their contrast, and it's making them feel like they're made of light. If you want to do it that way, and you can just make the whole background darker. You do have this option, but that doesn't fit the script. Or you can darken the half of the character so that this spear of light can kind of have a little bit more strength to it. So you have a lot of options. So there's darkening this half of the character right here so that we have more of the bounce light on this side. So it gives you more three-dimensional presence in the scene. And then with soft light, I'm just going to give this spear a little bit more strength of presence, moving all the way down. And then that fits the description. I think this one fits the description really, really closely, because we're seeing a lot of the spear, you know what I mean? And it's really taking over the design, which is exactly what we want. And I'm just letting a little bit more of that light hang out on the side there. So small changes, but they do something for this scene. Okay, so before, the background was competing with the light of the spear, which was throwing off the story in another sense, which is it's supposed to be a darker, abysmal moment of carnage. And the character, the light, warrior of light comes out and changes the odds and turns the odds. So I'm just reducing their glow just a little bit. Any final thoughts at all?
I really like the glow that you've done. I think that makes her feel more supernatural, because before it almost feels a little bit like she's just found this weapon, but now she's almost part of it.
Oh, very, very true. Very true. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm just darkening that foreground object because it just seems like it's bright for no reason. And then maybe darkening a little bit more of the environment might help that spotlight come out. Come on. All right. So just kind of darkening more around the edges, just to make the light move out a little bit. Okay, moving forward. Beautiful pieces, so much variety. There's this one, which reminds me of Kingdom Hearts a lot, which is so cute. Go ahead, Harrison.
I really like the little pedestal. Like, obviously the character's beautiful, but I like this thing she's standing on. It's cute. And yeah, the character design, the sleeves, the clothes, the hair is So cool.
Mm-hmm.
And
Anything
the
you
spear
change?
looks like a
Mm-hmm.
Legend of Zelda monster. Um, I think the colors are a bit off, maybe.
Yeah, how so?
There's just not much harmony between them. It's again, it almost feels like she's picked up a weapon that doesn't belong to her.
Oh, very true, very true. Any other thoughts at all?
Uh, the lighting, the shadow on the floor says that it's a strong side light, but there's not much shadow on her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So that's what I could see.
I like the cobblestone under, but it feels very, very random. Everything else is painted to perfection, meaning that we have barely any banding. All of the surface areas are super clean, the edges are clean, but then we have this painterly cobblestone pattern underneath that looks like it's from a completely different painting. And I agree, this does seem like it belongs to another darker character, not quite this bubbly, full character that we're looking at, with lots of curvy, full shapes that are, layered on top of each other. Not much layering here. It feels very flat. So we need to sort of do something to the spear to make this all work. The first thing I'm going to do, which I think is just presentation's sake, is I'm going to get rid of the floor. Just because I feel like we really don't need it, even as the audience. Like, I don't think I'm going to miss it, because my eyes should be up here. They should not be on a pattern of stones that has nothing to do with either the narrative or the character, or just even bringing any kind of power to the character's design. It's really just there just to make the character have some environment around them, which I understand. But I wouldn't ask for environment, and if I was the director of this game, if it was a game or movie, I wouldn't want that to be on the poster. This looks like a poster, and you're just throwing in this unnecessary texture here. So yeah, we end up having this empty spot. But you have to learn as the artist, what is a decent sacrifice. What's a sacrifice that's worth it, that makes your portfolio look more clean and less full of guessing. I think it was kind of full of guesswork here. It feels very like the artist wasn't quite sure, so they slapped together something just so that they can have environment and say they have it. This looks more clean because the artist now feels like someone who cares about presentation, who cares about the final kind of complete delivery of the character's design. So now that we did that, what I'm going to do is, even if the character doesn't float because of the way they're described, I would just make the feet kind of have a bit of that floating look. Because what that will do is it will kind of make also the feet, the design of the shoes feels just a little bit simplified. Like there could have been some references you pick up that make the feet look a little bit more, less like she's wearing kind of like, what are they called in the UK? Wellingtons? Wellies? They're
Yeah.
just very simple rain boots, which is fine. Boots are not supposed to be super detailed in a character anyway, but just something that makes the character have just a bit of detail there. But anyway, I'm just going to try to make the feet look like they're floating just a little bit, so we have less of that grounded foot. And then just trying to make them look less like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without redesigning the shoes. But just to make the feet look like they're floating. The next thing I'm going to do, which you've already done here, is just add a little bit of that glow towards the lower half of the canvas to fill that space up. So just soft light. And I'm going to get the blue instead. And I'm going to let that kind of chill on the lower half here. I don't think soft light works against dark. So I'm just going to use normal. And I'm just letting some of that blue hang out. It's just like this ambient glow that exists on the outside of the character. It's not so much like direct glow coming from the shoes, like the shoes aren't glowing. but it's just a little bit of leftover glow moving down. And I'm going to use yellow for the bits here. Make sure you're changing the glow color from the source of the glow. You're not just using white anywhere. You're using gold for the gold parts and blue for the blue parts. And that's what will bring that extra dimension in. And you can saturate the glow even more than the origin color is saturated, just so you can have that bit of dimension. So I think that filled up the scene really nicely, especially after cleaning it up. And then there's the spear. So what are we going to do with that? I think, actually, Harrison, what would you do to the spear to make it look like it belongs to this character and less like it's like someone else's character she picked up?
I would make it like blue, electric blue.
Electric blue, okay.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can do that. Sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I don't know, maybe the shapes I would change slightly.
How? So these sharper shapes you'd make more circular or something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let me see if I can change the color. Because, yeah, it was looking a little bit like Hades' character kind of spear. Do you know what I mean? And less like a protagonist spear. Yeah, maybe the character picked up a power that isn't quite human, but they're human. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes you have that crossing and overlapping of aesthetics just to show this is someone else's spear that they're borrowing. But this story, the whole notion is that both characters, both the character and the spear are one being. They're an extension. That's how it was described, I believe. It's been a while since I read it, but it's an extension of the character. So the blue is a really, really good fix right off the bat. That's already matching. And then I'm just going to raise the contrast in some areas just so it looks more like a spear of light. So I'm just trying to make it look a bit more glow. So when you say electric blue, do you mean like just brighter? Just also make the spear brighter?
I was thinking the actual light would be blue, but I like what you've done, so don't worry.
Oh, the light. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, let me see what I can do with that. I kind of like the yellow because it's complementing the hair. It's closing everything off nicely.
Yeah.
But let me see what I can do. And I'm just color correcting. And then, yeah, for the, I mean, I don't want everything to look exactly the same, but at least like one of these little bat wings on the outsides could be circular in some way, just so we can represent some of this curvy kind of character pattern we're seeing everywhere here. So just to make it look a bit more girly almost, if that's a good word to use. So it's not really a question of, oh, masculine patterns versus feminine patterns. It's just matching. You've got a lot of these curved flower petal like very, very pretty inoffensive type of patterns here. So just picking one of these things to kind of, you know, just represent that a little bit, be more consistent so it doesn't look like someone else's weapon, because it feels like her outfit should have more of those sharp, you know, jagged kind of triangular points here and there, something like that to match that spear. So maybe like more of the kind of like a spiky dress of some kind would have made a lot of sense with the older spear shape. But we got none of that. We've just got like curve, curve, more curves up here. And so I'm just trying to do exactly that. And then I'll leave the point as it is, but I'll try to use some of that blue Harrison suggested. Maybe soft light might work if it's not going to show in the black. I'm just kind of canceling out the end. So it's like kind of distorted in light, which will help us quite a lot with the pointed tip. And then I'm just going to use one really, really big brush stroke for the end, while also adding in like a blue glow, like layering the glows, like having it blue in some areas on the outside and then deleting and having gold on the inside. So we have a mix of gold and yellow glow on the spear, and that kind of collects both of those colors together. Not too much saturation on the yellow though, because it'll just look bad.
Is
And
that color dodge? Are you using color dodge, or is that just
that's just a
normal layer?
a normal layer on 35% with soft brush. And then the layer
Looks so
underneath it,
cool.
yeah, with the blue and the layering. That's why it looks like dodge, because dodge likes to add multiple rings of colors as you intensify the dodge use. It saturates. It's kind of annoying, but that's kind of what it does. And then I'm gonna just flatten the whole thing and maybe try to add in a little bit more glow with like a double layer, and just see if I can, oops, that's a lot, show some kind of translucency, almost like she's a wick of some kind of candle, and the glow is just right on the outsides, just letting some areas spike up into highlight, and I can only do that once I've zoomed out. And just messing around a little bit with this and that, and maybe having some of the light along the boot just to create some extra three-dimensional rotation in the leg, finding wherever the forms are and what they might be responding to. So small little changes that just kind of wake up the fact that she's a very luminescent character. And then I'd even go so far as to kind of find a almost like a god ray coming out of her, but not quite. Let me see if I can find my brushes. So which one do I use? Maybe that one. This is going to look pretty intense pretty quickly, but I'm not trying to use the entire pattern. What I want to do is kind of use like the negative space of that pattern a little bit. See what's happening in the navigator? That's what we're after. Right here, it's there, but not quite there till you zoom out. And I would do something like a blue instead of that perfect yellow, just so we have a bit more layering and dimension to the glow. And then just wherever we can, deleting for that negative space. So it adds like a little bit of dimension, a little bit of texture. We had a glow before, but this kind of like just expands the glow and fills up more of the room. And it just feels like a really interesting character. We got to do all that only because we got rid of that the stone floor underneath, which really closed off the character. In this type of character design, just go ahead and crop it. I don't miss that extra space because it's a side to side view anyway of the character. It's mostly weighing horizontally. Do you know what I mean? So that's why we would just crop the scene. So let's take a look at the before. So more grounded, more of a playable character, less of a final boss character, and that Warrior of Light was definitely a final boss. If you want to know how to make your characters look more colossal, that's how you do it, by kind of removing those external factors that weigh the character down. All of that just because of the cobblestones underneath. And then after, attention is more towards your design, your costume, what you picked for the character. All of that stuff is now more front and center. And all the beauty that you put into the character is now more easy to look at as the viewer. I find it very easy to enjoy the character. Before, it was a clash. I didn't know which one to look at. The spear wasn't quite matching the character. She was so interesting and cute and kind of like, I just want to know more about this character. Is this a game? What is this type of, like, I'm just looking at things as if someone random is looking at your portfolio. And this answers all those questions. It feels like a very strong, fully realized character. And if you do like many of these, it'd be so cool if your portfolio is filled with these. Go ahead, Harrison. What are your final thoughts for this one?
Yeah, it looks amazing. It looks angelic. I think the hair as well. It kind of looks like a halo, and a wing is like unintentional maybe, but she looks awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I did not see that. That's very, very cool. And I love this, like this big bulky animation kind of principles, using bulkier shapes for hair. It feels very weightless, and that's why kind of making her float also helps with that weightlessness. Almost like she's a mermaid, just kind of like floating around, or the hair has, it's like a cape, it's just kind of moving to an invisible wind. And then we have this one. So this one's unfinished, but what are some things you would do to it to make it more finished looking? Harrison, go ahead.
Oh, I really don't know. It's hard to find one main thing to change. I can't think.
Let's go back to the story.
Balancing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go on.
Let's go back to the story and see what the story might help us in the decisions. So if the story is saying it's a warrior of light, there's a lot of light factor, what would be the first thing you change in applying some color?
Yeah, I would introduce value, and I would figure out where my focal point is, and what kind of person she is.
Harrison's being put on the spot, basically tested.
I am. Well,
I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. So there's yeah. So there's darkening the background. Does that kind of help move things forward?
Sure.
And then maybe adding some color of some kind. So maybe that color, and then darkening after that. Okay, and then how about the focal points? So what do you believe the focal points are?
The headpiece and this interesting like fabric thing. I think it's kind of Egyptian looking.
Ooh, okay.
God.
All right, so let's kind of try to render that out. So just giving it some kind of like sash-like golden pattern and banding. It kind of like expands and then goes down and expands again. All right,
and glowing eyes, definitely.
Glowing eyes, all right, I'll get to that. And then the glowing eyes. So I'm just going to get some kind of like a whiter glow. What color to the glowing eyes? White or another color you want to introduce?
White, yeah, sure. I don't know. I guess they're a good character, so you've got to go white.
Yeah. So I'm adding a bit of glow there and see if that looks okay. Maybe not the whole sash. Maybe just the crown. So yeah, the focal point is the crown. So I'm doing that, and so because the light, yeah, definitely that looks great. And because the light is at the top, now we have to decide, now where's the shadow hanging out? Add a shadow running down the middle, and going here, more light on the sides. Okay. And so the sash is kind of reflecting some of that light on the sides, and then just trying to capture where the light is coming from all angles. So the more you simplify the shapes, the more easy it is for you to decide where the major light and shadow neighborhoods are. Okay, and then there's this piece right here, which I'm just going to give a very silken pattern to.
I really like this though. It's almost like an X-Men character.
Oh yeah.
The suit being all the same gray.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did not see that. X-Men, yeah. I love the X-Men costumes, all of them. They all just are so perfect. Especially, it does feel like Storm, especially because of the glowing eyes. And I'm just gonna give some glow for the spear. And this time the spear does match the character. Do you see what they did to the patterns on the spear? It just has a lot of repeated themes in the costume. This is how it's done. This is how you do it. And then, so these are just really simple changes to help you get started. Nothing too kind of like crazy. So like you can you can copy these exactly and kind of move your illustration forward towards completion if you just get this little head start. And I'm just adding glow here on a larger scale. So it's not that hard to get started. And then I'm just really quickly going to add the Terminator lines running down the costume. Just like right here, we got some Terminators. A quick one along the thigh, along the other thigh, the shadow under the sash, or yeah, the skirt, and then some more Terminator lines here, and then maybe a bit of shadow for the, oops, I have the wrong layer on, I merged them. So yeah, just something there. And then there's just the colors. So maybe kind of trying to use some color in there in the costume. I think the size as well of the head is very small, but I'm not sure if that's helping or taking away, because it is looking like, it makes her look like a bigger giant, but we really don't have anything to compare that to at the moment. So adding more of that glow up here and more glow in the hair, since there's so much light around the character. So it doesn't take a lot of work to move the painting along. The only difference is the knowledge of what you can do to move the painting along. So the knowledge that you need to darken the background, the knowledge of where the core shadows are. I wouldn't say it takes a lot of work to do those things, because I did all those steps in front of you. They're very, very clean steps. All you have to know is how much to apply of each. And it kind of took it from here to here. So I think I did select. Oops. Okay, so it's not a lot to just build the scene a little bit more. It's almost complete, to be honest. I mean, this is what quick concept art is. You know what you want out of a focal point, out of the magnitude of the glow, and you know, simple color coordination for the costume, and that's it. Things look pretty done pretty quickly. So imagine just more hours cleaning up the edges, adding detail, and how much more finished this would seem. So completed paintings, don't be so mystified by the process of completing a painting, especially for this artist. Don't be intimidated by it, or don't think that it takes some kind of godlike level of patience. It's just about having the confidence and the boldness, really, to just try those big, large-scale changes that might make all the difference. And then, of course, there's the standard basics. Where's the light source coming from? What are the biggest shapes, and what shapes would they be if they were geometric shapes? And what are the main core shadows? And things look very done very, very quickly. Things get finished very, very quickly. So I believe we've looked at all of them. Thank you so much, Harrison, for helping me today. And thank you for participating. I can't wait to take a look at the rest of your work and your portfolio. Do you have any thoughts at all before I let you go?
I just want to say thank you so much. I've been following you since Google Plus,
That's so
and
awesome.
it just means so much.
Well,
So thank you.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you for being part of the community for so long. I'm honored you guys are here, just participating in this, keeping this community alive. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys for participating. Thank you everyone for all your submissions. This is the last critique hour of the year. I'm going to be out of critique hour for maybe like 2 to 3 weeks. Anyways, I will let you guys go. Thank you everyone for participating. Happy New Year, happy holidays, and I'll see you guys next critique hour. Bye.